The legend of Sargon of Akkad, written around 2300 BCE, is one of the oldest stories we know. It's an Akkadian work from Mesopotamia, understood as the autobiography of Sargon the Great, the founder of the Akkadian Empire. Imagine this, a king thousands of years ago, telling his own life story. But here is the twist. The earliest copy we have isn't from Sargon's lifetime at all. It's from the 7th century BCE, discovered in the ruins of the famous library of Ashurbanipal in the 19th century. That means his tale was so powerful, people kept retelling it for over 1,600 years. The text is usually called the Birth Legend of Sargon. It describes how the greatest conqueror of Mesopotamia came from the humblest beginnings. It tells us he rose to power with the divine help of the goddess Ishtar, and it ends with a challenge, a dare to all future kings to go where he went and to do as he did. Why does this matter? Because Sargon wasn't just any king. He founded the world's first multinational empire. His reign became legendary. Countless stories sprang up around his name. Yet outside of these tales, we know shockingly little about his real life. Works like The Legend of Sargon of Akkad or Sargon and Ur-Zababa are all we have. These stories are part of a fascinating genre called Mesopotamian Naru literature. Think of it as the world's first historical fiction. In these tales, famous kings were recast as characters in fictional works. The genre flourished around the 2nd millennium BCE, and people loved it. We know this because so many copies of Naru texts survive. Now, here's the key. Naru literature wasn't trying to fool anyone. It wasn't about tricking people with fake history. Its purpose was to teach values, inspire audiences, and preserve cultural memory. In Sargon's case, the legend presented him as a man of the people, someone who started life with nothing, fought his way up, and carved out an empire by sheer will. And Sargon himself understood exactly what he was doing. He wasn't just a brilliant general. He was a storyteller, a political genius. He knew the common people hated the nobility. So instead of claiming he was chosen by the gods, like kings before him, he told a very different story. He said he was the illegitimate child of a priestess, someone who never even knew his father. His mother, unable to keep him, placed him in a basket sealed with tar and set him adrift on the Euphrates River. Sound familiar? Yes, centuries later, the biblical story of Moses would echo this very same legend. The river carried the infant Sargon safely until a humble gardener named Aki pulled him out of the water. Aki raised him, taught him, and gave him work. And when Sargon grew, the goddess Ishtar herself blessed him with her love. This story distanced him from the aristocracy and aligned him with the ordinary people. He wasn't born into palaces or wealth. He was just like them, an orphan, abandoned, rescued, and lifted up by kindness and divine favor. That's why his legend stuck. Now, remember, the copy we have was written centuries after his death. But to the people of his time, the message was clear. Sargon wasn't just a conqueror, he was a symbol of hope. He was the outsider who became the ruler. And the timing couldn't have been better. When Sargon seized power in 2334 BCE, the Sumerian cities had just been loosely united, but cracks were everywhere. Rival cities fought constantly over land and water. The rich elite owned most of the land, leaving the poor desperate and angry. Historian Susan Wise Bauer puts it this way: while the Sumerian kings struggled to control even a few cities, Sargon swept across the land with shocking speed. Why? Because he presented himself as one of the people. His story, the boy from nothing, spoke to the downtrodden masses. And when he called for their support, they listened. With their help, he conquered Sumer, then stretched his rule across the whole Mesopotamian plain. The result? The world's first great empire. But of course, ruling wasn't all glory. Inscriptions tell us his reign was filled with revolts and resistance. People might have cheered him at first, but empires are never easy to hold together. Still, by then, the legend had already done its work. The people believed in him. And that's where the legend itself gets fascinating. In Sargon's own words, preserved in the tale, he declares, "My mother was a changeling. My father I knew not. She set me in a basket of rushes, sealed with bitumen, and cast me into the river. The river carried me to Aki, the drawer of water. Aki lifted me out, raised me as his son, and made me a gardener. While I was a gardener, Ishtar granted me her love, and then I ruled as king." This is pure drama, a story of abandonment, rescue, divine love, and ultimate triumph. It's a poor boy makes good tale from over 4,000 years ago. But here's the kicker. None of it might be true. We don't even know Sargon's real name. Sargon means legitimate king, a throne name chosen to strengthen his claim. His supposed birthplace, Azupiranu, isn't mentioned anywhere else. It may never have existed at all. But that didn't matter. The legend became his truth. And the symbolism runs deep. In Mesopotamian culture, water wasn't just water. It was transformative. The fact that Sargon survived the river ordeal as a baby, that was proof of his destiny. To his people, this wasn't just a story. It was divine justice. Over time, the myth overshadowed the man. Later, kings, from Ur-Nammu to Hammurabi, and even the mighty Assyrians, borrowed from Sargon's example. They modeled themselves on his legend. By the time of Ashurbanipal, Sargon's name was as famous as Alexander the Great or Julius Caesar. And thanks to Ashurbanipal's vast library, where scribes copied thousands of works to preserve them for future generations, Sargon's story survived. Hidden in the ruins of Nineveh, rediscovered in the 19th century, it still speaks to us today. The legend of Sargon of Akkad is more than just ancient propaganda. It's one of the earliest rags to riches stories in human history. It inspired later traditions, shaped kingship for centuries, and reminds us of the timeless power of storytelling. Because in the end, whether Sargon's story was fact or fiction doesn't really matter. What mattered was that it felt true to his people, to history, and even to us, thousands of years later.